Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call our February 17th meeting to order. We always begin our meetings with a moment of silence, so now would be the time for you to silence your cell phones as well. Please make sure they're not making any inadvertent beeps and other such noises. Now, if you would like, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now, if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith, announcements.
Town hall on our second floor multi-purpose room from 4 to 7 p.m. about the North Carolina 115 widening. Oh, clicker's not working, sorry y'all. Also wanted to let everybody know that street resurfacing is underway around town. Crews are just getting started, so they're just starting work on street corner ramps, which means they're redoing the ramp access to sidewalks. That's kind of the first clue that resurfacing is coming to the area. There is more information on our website, as well as a list of streets slated to be resurfaced at that address right there, huntersville.org/3392/street resurfacing. You can also go to our website and search street resurfacing for more information. Also wanted to share with everybody all the recruiting efforts our police department has been doing. They're actively recruiting talented individuals who are interested in serving their community and held a hiring event on February 7th and had 19 applicants attend and complete a written exam and physical fitness test. They've attended recruiting events also at Western Carolina University, Winston-Salem State University, Winthrop University, and UNC Charlotte. And they are scheduled to attend other events this month at UNC Wilmington, Clemson University, the Citadel, ECU, and UNC Greensboro. Also, please join the police department for the polar plunge. The Queen City Chill Polar Plunge at Ramsey Creek Park. That'll be on Sunday, February 22nd, starting at 1 p.m. You can register in advance at queencitychill.com, or you can register starting at 1 p.m. And then the actual plunge the day of begins at 2:30 p.m. That is all I had, so barring any other questions, I'd like to call Chief Brian Vaughn up at this time for a Birkdale Village update.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners and staff. Thanks for giving me a few minutes here at the beginning of this meeting to kind of go over some of the undisciplined juvenile things that we've been having going on this past weekend in Birkdale. I think first off, I think what I want to start off with saying is our meetings with Birkdale started back in November as far as addressing the undisciplined juvenile campaigns that have been happening on the weekends there. The staff at Birkdale have been super informative and cooperative with what we're doing as a police department and how we can support the Birkdale on their success and continuing to be a safe place to gather. Specifically, I want to talk about between November and the end of the year. We partner with Birkdale to do a directed enforcement effort during that period of time where we had extra officers going during their off-duty hours on overtime and spending their time doing some of the directed enforcement that we need to do in order to be effective. As a result of that, during the 6 weeks or so that we were doing that, it was mainly on Friday and Saturday nights. We charged around 50 people during that time with a variety of things between parking tickets, moving violations, traffic violations, and so we had a very active presence up there on the weekends during the holiday season. I think that it's also important to note that during the holiday season, while we were doing those directed patrols, that we actually didn't have any calls for service during the times that we were up there. So we didn't receive any calls about gatherings, disturbances, or any kind of crimes like assaults, robberies, et cetera. And so I think what's important to note about that is that it was effective. It did its job. It had the expected outcome. At the end of the year, we discontinued those extra patrols because we saw the positive impact it was having. And as we moved into January, early January wasn't, that bad of an issue. And then we had those couple weeks of snowstorms and ice storms. And again, we just obviously didn't have any calls for service during those times. And then come Saturday, this undisciplined group of juveniles that were there Saturday night. Immediately, I apologize. Let me backtrack. So back in mid to late January, we reconvened with the management staff of Birkdale Village to include some of their corporate Hines managing partners from DC, and just talk through them resuming off-duty officers up there, because we haven't actually had off-duty officers up there since October. And so we were revisiting that with their staff at Birkdale Village about them employing off-duty police officers that can enforce criminal law and be present on campus during potentially these gatherings that are happening. So when we originally did this meeting mid-late January, we anticipated some of the things that Birkdale is doing as a corporation, or Hines Group is doing as a corporation with their private code of conduct that they have on property. And some of that stuff we anticipated working with them and getting that out around St. Patrick's Day. And obviously with the events of the weekend, we've pushed that schedule up. The managing partners from Hines and the management team here locally at Birkdale have been, we've been going back and forth about what this looks like moving forward. First, I'd like to indicate that they have resumed wanting to hire off-duty officers again. Typically during the winter season is the slower season as far as any kind of reported crimes are concerned with Birkdale, except for the shoplifters and things that happen. And so our off-duty officers actually didn't patrol the area from October to January, and I'm saying that in a off-duty capacity on Hines' dime. And so we were going to roll this program out around St. Patty's Day to get it ready for the upcoming spring break and the potential of those gatherings. And so this has pushed up a little bit of those timelines with that. I think what's important to note about Saturday night is I believe I would swear to this on the stand, but I believe that it was an organized event. Do I believe that undisciplined juveniles are hanging out up there on other nights of the year? Absolutely. This particular night, I think it's important also to note that we had no reported assaults. When our officers arrived on scene, they were there within minutes of the initial call for service. In reality, we have an officer that Red Rocks had hired as an off-duty officer, and he was present at Red Rocks when this happened. So he was able to immediately respond. And the kids that were there that particular night, honored everything that officer had to say when he went to them and said, hey, you have to disperse, you need to leave. And, within 20 to 30 minutes, they dispersed from the area. The other thing that we have witnessed and noticed is the influx of juveniles using Uber to get to Birkdale Village. And so that's a whole different problem that's beyond the police department's control. I can't control what Uber does. I can't control where they pick up people and deliver them. And so they've got their own rules. And so if Uber is allowing 15-year-olds to get in an Uber and be dropped off at Birkdale, I can't control that piece of this. And so I think as we move forward, Birkdale's reemploying the off-duty officers to the tune of, I think, an extra 4 or 5 on Friday nights and 6 or 7, 8, somewhere in that vicinity on Saturday nights to supplement their security team that they have on property. And then lastly, I think, I just want to make sure that we delineate curfew versus town curfew and Birkdale's code of conduct. And I think it's important to say that Birkdale's code of conduct is their personal, private code of conduct for their business and how they operate. I can't, and the police department cannot enforce their code of conduct. Where we can step in is they implement a new curfew. I believe the one that was listed today says 6 p.m. for the age. I don't recall the age right now, but after 6 p.m., under 18 has to have an adult or something along those lines. And so we can't, as a police department, step in and say, you're under 18, you got to go. This is a private business, and if we got into the business of enforcing private businesses' rules, it would open us up to so much litigation. It's not, it violates constitutional rights, and we can go into another rabbit hole with that. So where we step in is when Birkdale says, enough is enough, we don't want this person here anymore, they can call us and we'll go and help them ban or trespass the person from the property. And so as we move forward with this, that continues to take training and education. I believe that they're doing some training Friday this week with their security staff to kind of reiterate where the line is, where it's a private business and what they can enforce and what we can enforce. And that also then just kind of lends to how difficult the education piece of this can be. And because we have a tendency to want to fill in blanks and assume things and think that the police can go up there and just arbitrarily enforce a rule that Birkdale has. That's not to say we won't support them. It's just to say that we just constitutionally don't have the ability to do that. And so with that, I really don't have a lot of other input right now. We are doing follow-ups with some of the folks that were in the video. We're trying to identify people in that video, and we'll see where that leads. The second piece of the education is we're using our SROs to communicate with teenagers, not sending out blast emails to the whole school, but our SROs are interacting with the schools, teenagers that are there to try to get insight about how these are getting organized and show up at Birkdale for this particular week. And then we've also reached out to surrounding counties because as the officers were out there Saturday night, they identified that there are kids coming from surrounding counties. Shocker, you build a nice multi-use property, you're going to attract people. And so people are coming from Cabarrus County and Iredell County and Rowan County and Lincoln County. They're coming from everywhere. It's not just a particular city or person or people. And so we're trying to utilize everything that we can to try to mitigate some of this. We also don't have a full-time IT social media person that can just monitor traffic on social media all day, but there may be the potential there for some sort of software or something out there that can help us with that and help monitor things that are on social media, and so we can address that at a future meeting. I don't really have anything else unless somebody has a question up here.
I don't have a question, but I was just going to support what you shared a moment ago from Hines. They said visitors under the age of 18 must be accompanied by an adult after 6 p.m., and that's effective Friday, February 20th.
Yeah, I think the other thing I was going to say is with the training on their security side is going to be important. Jobs like that tend to have high turnover, and so every few months we kind of have to revisit. No big deal. It's just an education piece that we can help, and they've got some great staff there that are full-time people that are there, that have been there for a long time. I mean, there's no secret that they've been here for 25 years, and we've had a great relationship with each owner that has come through, and Hines has been no different.
Chief, I want to thank you. I want to confirm some of the things you said because I've been in just about all of the meetings with Hines, yourself, and staff. You mentioned the organized event, and we've heard that it could possibly be a TikTok challenge. We also, we hear a lot of these incidents come from teenagers from Northlake, because I received a phone call just yesterday, and the lady said that we're bringing Northlake to Huntersville. In our meetings, we've heard Statesville, we've heard Lincolnton, and we've heard other areas. So again, this is not a Northlake flux of teenagers coming to Huntersville. We've had teenagers in Birkdale in large crowds for quite some time, and unfortunately, I can't support the actions that took place on this past weekend. there's no excuse for that. But we did hear that part of it was triggered by adults throwing beer cans and bottles from Suffolk Punch at the children. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, we haven't been able to land completely on it. Our officers are investigating that claim as well. That was reported to the officers as well, and so that's part of the investigative process of going through, the different pieces of what transpired Saturday night.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Can you speak briefly to the difference in the public and private property of Birkdale? So like if the kids are on a sidewalk or they're in the middle of the road or they're standing on the green, like the differences and what that means?
Yeah, I think where we tread into it is, when they're on the private property piece and they don't want a patron there, they can ask them to leave. And when they start getting in the road and blocking the road or blocking, people being able to drive through the area, that crosses into the illegal portion where we can step in and enforce the part where they're blocking traffic and stuff. And so that's where the mix is here of the public-private situation that is up there, and it's kind of unique for us because it is a destination for people. And so I think that goes back to the education piece of us working with their security and making sure that they know this is what they can and can't do, and this is what the police can and can't do. And they don't, the things that their security can do and we can do not commingle at all.
Thank you. Commissioner Smallwood, do you have a question?
That made me think of a question. Thank you. So as far as the stores go, those are private as well?
Yeah, I would be speaking on their behalf. I think that they all lease, and it's all Heinz property, and then they have leases with the individual stores that they have present.
Okay. And just one more thing. So 4 officers, 4 or 5 on Friday, and you said 5, 6, or 7 on Saturday?
Yes, ma'am.
How many Birkdale security would there be in addition to that?
They actually had already, I believe that there was, I think when we did the social districting up there, that we were requiring Birkdale to, I say we, the town, not the police department, was requiring Heinz to have 2, previous owners to have 2 security associates there. They increased that on their own prior to Saturday night. They've already had an increased presence there. I think they've had upwards of 6 at times, but I don't want to, I would hate to tell you that they had 6 on this day and that not be the case, because I personally haven't had eyes on it. Back in November, December, we had an opportunity to interact with the security guards there too, and it just also helps with that relationship of the security guards feeling comfortable and seeking help from us when they can't handle what they're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think one other thing, I could talk for 2 hours, but I think the other piece of this has come up is some of the cruising. I'll call it cruising because that's what I did when I was a teenager. I cruised. It's probably not cool to say that anymore. I want to be cautious, and this carries over to multiple facets, not just the cruising pieces. I want to be cautious about making more laws and ordinances to enforce when we have effective ones already, because what ends up happening then is you have an entire community that's impacted because we've made this decision, the town has made this decision to implement some new no cruise policy, or no cruise ordinance, and now we're trying to enforce it in Target or in a neighborhood or whatever the rules surround that with. And we've got plenty of tools in our tool belt already with our ordinances. We have a noise ordinance where our officers wrote noise ordinance tickets during the enforcement period in November, December. We have loud muffler. We've got plenty. We've got plenty of laws on the books, and I don't think doing anything in reaction specifically to this event would sell the. I don't think it is beneficial to the entire town. Mm-hmm.
And one, I think you didn't say it, but I know that you mean it in your heart, is that if someone's there and there's an issue, that they should call 911, right? They should call.
I have been beating this till the wheels fall off. But yeah, I mean, you have got to call 911, and I just said it a minute ago. We don't have the staffing. We don't have the ability to monitor posts. We don't have the ability to generate calls for service from our private messages. We have that as a response in our private messages that, hey, you've got to call 911 to get somebody there. We can't and don't respond and generate our workload from that specifically.
Thank you. Any
Yes,
other
ma'am.
questions? All right, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Ethan, you didn't have any more announcements after this? Okay. We have a proclamation for National Engineers Week, and they are not in this room, but I know they are watching, the engineers who help plan our roadways. Whereas engineers use their scientific skills and specialized knowledge and skills in creative and innovative ways to fulfill society's needs, and whereas engineers help solve major technological challenges of our time, from designing efficient building systems to rebuilding towns devastated by natural disasters, and whereas engineering has been called the invisible or stealth profession because everything around us and things we use every day have been engineered in some way, yet we may not see the engineers behind the scenes or know much about engineering, and whereas founded in 1951, National Engineers Week is dedicated to ensuring a diverse and well-educated future engineering workforce by increasing understanding of and interest in engineering and technology careers. And whereas E-Week is a formal coalition of engineering, education, and cultural societies with corporations and government agencies dedicated to raising public awareness of engineers' positive contributions to quality of life. And whereas E-Week promotes recognition among parents, teachers, and students of the importance of a technical education and high level of math, science, and technology literacy, and motivates youth to pursue engineering careers in order to provide a diverse and vigorous engineering workforce. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim the week of February 22nd through February 28th as National Engineers Week. And our Director of Engineering is right here. Thank you, sir. And I have one other thing that we want to share. Catherine Cook has fulfilled the requirements with the International Institute of Municipal Clerks to become a certified municipal clerk. So let's give her a round of applause. Okay, we have some public comments. And so this is our public comment policy. If you've not spoken here before, just take a second before your name is called to review our policy and make sure that you are adhering to the rules of order in this chamber. We will start with Marianne Turetsky. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Marianne Turetsky. I live in Birkdale, and you all know what happened Saturday. Over 200 teenagers terrorized cars trying to pass around in Birkdale, people eating in restaurants and businesses. You're all responsible for that, except Heather and Scott, because the rest of you voted to allow developers to do whatever they wanted, whether it fit in the footprint of Birkdale or not. We are now, for sure, North Lake Mall on steroids. Our beautiful Birkdale is now called Truckdale. Kids have videotaped what they did on cars on Saturday night, and it's gone viral. We're a viral sensation. Want us to wonder what was promised at the end of the rainbow that you all fell into line with the developers. Edwin, I just read your campaign slogans that we got from you years ago. You said you would follow the 2040 plan as it was written. You have not. You also said you were always going to be transparent. You have not. You told me I shouldn't be upset that the board voted in favor of the developers because they were going to flip the project real soon. How did you know that? It was sold off about a month later. Did you have private meetings with the developer? Are you in talks with Heinz, U.S. Property now? Let's have some transparency.
Ms. Turetsky, can you please refrain from doing direct attacks on the commissioner? Thank you.
Okay. You all ruined Birkdale Village, and you're going to see its demise real soon. Businesses are not going to renew their leases. People are already avoiding the village. Last Saturday, the kids were pointing their fingers as people ate in the restaurants, telling them they were going to shoot them. Well, there will be guns there soon, and it'll be on all your heads, except Heather and Scott.
Dawn Snow, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Dawn Snow. Okay. With the efforts to rezone Birkdale Village last year, the residents begged the town to deny the rezoning, and we warned the current board about what would happen to the village, but you approved it anyway. We told you that the out-of-town developer, Jamestown, was rezoning Birkdale to flip it for a quick buck, and they did. We told you that Birkdale Village would lose its original appeal and quaintness of being a village and morph into an overcrowded outdoor mall, and it has. We told you that crime and loitering was going to escalate from the increased density, and it has. We told both you and the former owners, Jamestown, that increased security and police resources would be required, and not just on weekends. However, both the current and former owners didn't believe that such an increase in security was necessary. For a short while, there was some police presence on site during the weekends, but for some strange reason, that seemed to stop shortly after HPD put out a video stating that they would be increasing enforcement efforts due to increased juvenile-related activity. Birkdale Village has a code of conduct. However, since December, there has been little enforcement of this code, the curfew, or the local law violations, and now it has escalated into large organized mobs of unruly teenagers swarming the village on weekends, loitering, shoplifting, playing loud music, smoking weed, being disorderly and obscene, putting on public performances, dancing on cars, and blocking traffic, all of which are in violation of the Code of Conduct and local laws. The videos that happened this weekend speak for themselves. Can you imagine what it will be like when the weather gets warmer in a few months? The lack of enforcement is driving away the base of customers who actually spend money there, which is going to affect the viability of the businesses. It is also sending a message to the organized gangs of teens that this behavior is condoned, and it is negatively impacting the rights and safety of the businesses, visitors, and residents of the neighborhood. I would hope that Heinz, the new owners of Birkdale Village, would want to protect their $275 million investment. One tragic incident or shooting it in the village is all it will take, and it will not recover. The current security provided by Heinz is simply not working. Greater police presence and enforcement is required, and not for just a few weekends, but on an ongoing basis. Instead of absolving yourself of your responsibilities by pointing fingers at each other, both the town and Huntersville and Heinz need to work together to nip what is happening in the bud once and for all by enforcing the Code of Conduct and the local laws. If no effective solution is found to control this now and keep it under control, it seems that Birkdale Village may enter a death spiral and share the fate of North Lake and Eastland Mall. Thank you.
Just a reminder that after the speakers are completed, there's no clapping or cheering. Next, we have Rachel Zwiff. You have 3 minutes.
I might have changed my topic that I was going to discuss. But my name is Rachel Zwiff. I live in Pottstown. I came here to talk about the street calming methods being used on Delwood that need to be taken a look at due to the fact that the speeding continues to happen, and that another measure needs to be put into place, either a small traffic circle or a speed hump, as well as to provide advisory for the board to move forward with the advisory shoulders on Central Avenue. My second topic now that I would like to speak about is Birkdale. My son is a 14-year-old African-American young man that likes to go up to Birkdale and hang out with his friends. I stand here strongly suggesting that people don't use the word gangs and saying that this is what these teenagers are. They are teenagers. We have all been teenagers. I will get up here publicly and say I was a juvenile delinquent with no problems. And those are not the things that lead to those type of behaviors. They're just teenagers looking for an outlet. So I asked this board to work with Parks and Rec to look at other solutions that give these teenagers something to do in the summertime to lead them not to go up to Birkdale and cause these issues that the people that live in Birkdale are saying happen. I've dropped my son up there. I understand what happens, but I also go and get him back at a reasonable time. That's my biggest ask, is that I know, coming from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, once you started to take out a lot of the extracurricular activities, kids look for other things to do. Unfortunately, North Lake has become kind of what it is, and that's where kids used to go out and hang, but there needs to be other outlets, positive outlets for them to do. So I urge that you work with Parks and Recs to look to see what those activities could be, because as Charlotte grows, Huntersville grows as well, and I don't think these are things that the boards and previous boards thought would happen within this time span. So I ask that the public give them some grace as they work for finding a positive solution that helps everybody, the town, the youth, and the businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swift. Augustine, you have 3 minutes.
It's been hard to find the words. As a longtime Pottstown resident that lived on Delwood prior to the connecting development of Vermilion, it's difficult to explain what these speed bumps are supposed to serve. At times, it's tiring, and other times it can be painful. That was for my speech before the speed bumps were placed. I'm also here to address the speed bumps on Delwood, which honestly kind of extends into what you guys are talking about. But I want to share something that could possibly assist in our understanding. If anyone here has seen how aggressive drivers can be when students at North Met cross the designated sidewalk, or even rushing here at this intersection, you might understand. But let me bring it home, since we are focused on the speed bumps on Delwood. Jerry, a senior who isn't mobile enough to speak here today, has allowed me to share his experience. Jerry has had a mailbox taken out twice now. I'd also like to mention that Jerry lives on the section of Delwood that does have sidewalks. So before we jump onto the topic of sidewalks for pedestrian safety, I want to remind everyone here today, if a car hits something or someone, it is not the car's fault. Not the car's fault. To argue an error from the manufacturer would only highlight just how pointless speed bumps can be when communities are not represented with serious concern for human life. What I gained from Jerry has humbled me. I'd like to add something, hopefully I have enough time, to help us understand neglect. First, a quick fact. Huntersville's population prior to 1990 never exceeded 2,000 people according to the Mecklenburg files, and it spiked over 20,000 in a span of 10 years. My commitment to advocating for Pottstown was strengthened when I began picking up litter in Pottstown, but it broadened when I began picking up trash all along Main Street and Church Street daily, and occasional walks around Huntersville, Charlotte, and anywhere I can find trash. But I want to focus on what I've learned from picking up trash daily on Church Street, Main Street, and weekly Delwood in correlation to speed bumps on Delwood. I pick up at least 1 bucket's worth of trash every day. That's a 5-gallon bucket of trash every single day. I've been doing this for the past 3 years at least. I'm not sure that enough people understand the seriousness of picking up litter from morning into night, only to find the same amount of trash within days, not weeks or months. So when I pick up a bucket's worth of trash today, that same amount of trash will reappear in hours and minutes on trash days. So the issue with the speed bumps, as well as what's going on in Birkdale, I feel can really be summed up to one of the things we keep on bringing up, is the burst in population. The infrastructure across this nation has been discussed plenty of times to not being sufficient.
Augustine, your time is up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Noel Burton, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Noelle Burton. I run a Facebook group called Huntersville Unmasked, and I am privy to a lot of information that goes on behind the scenes that many of you guys don't know about. That's why I started my Facebook group. I'm the one that was getting sued by Jake Polillo, and I didn't have an outlet to talk to anyone, so people would message me. So I started a Facebook group where we all can gather together and share our experiences. And I just wanted to, I was sitting here looking at the public policy highlights. And, okay, so one, my name's Noelle Burton. Two, speakers have 3 minutes. I don't think I need 3 minutes. Three, speakers should not, I don't need you guys to respond to me. Four, speakers should be civil. Yeah, I will be. But 5, insults, personal attacks, accusations, profanity, vulgar language, inappropriate behavior won't be tolerated. That's kind of funny that you guys have said vulgarity, except Heather and Scott. You guys have called one of your constituents, Gatewood Campbell, she shared this to my group, an effing loser while you were sitting up there sharing that and talking about everyone in the audience. That is not okay. That is disgusting. You all should be ashamed of yourselves.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I must comment. There comes a point in time where enough is enough, and we must push back with the truth. We've heard some misleading statements tonight, but as she mentioned the person's name, Gatewood Campbell, we all know that Gatewood did a FOIA request on me about calling her an effing loser. Mr. Roberts, I'm pretty sure you read the FOIA request. Is there any facts in that comment from the so-called Huntersville Unmasked or anyone else, or Ms. Gatewood Campbell, who posted that I admitted that I said something vulgar to or about her?
So I have looked at the FOIA request and the documents that were shared with the public. And it was a claim by a previous commissioner, Commissioner Bergsman, that claimed that happened. That's it, just a claim. So no different than me and Ethan playing on the playground, and he said I pushed him. He claimed I pushed him. That's it. It was just a claim, nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. And just to note that anyone can go read the FOIA requests on the huntersville.org page. So if you want to verify any information, you can do it there as well. Our next person who signed up, I cannot read your handwriting. We think it may be Caleb McHale, but you're okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Next is Jordan Miller. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Jordan Miller. So I was actually there in Birkdale Saturday night with my girlfriend. We went to North Italia to eat, and step back a little bit. I've been going there for about 5 years. My girlfriend's from Miami. She moved here to be with me, and her parents would always say, like, you're moving to North Carolina, like it's just woods and forests and stuff like that. Like they didn't think there's any actual city. So whenever they would come visit, I would always take them to the village because like that's like to me, that's what I like to show people is like that's kind of what North Carolina is. Like Birkdale Village is awesome. That's where everyone kind of walks around. That's where all the families are, and that's just kind of where we hang out and we feel safe and like that's just where we like to go. So we went Saturday night. We got to North Italia. There were probably 200 to 300 kids there. It was pretty crazy. So we were eating, and we hear like a bang, and I think it was probably like a balloon popping, something like that. But what was happening is the kids were like making loud noises, popping balloons, and then they would run into the street and pretend that it was a gunshot to try to scare everyone. The waitress and many other people told me they'd already called the police, and police were there. I think maybe they couldn't do anything because there were just so many kids that it was unmanageable. I don't disagree with anything that anyone said. Kids do need an outlet. When I was younger, I used to work out a lot. I used to go to church a lot, and that helped me. So I don't disagree with that. But at the same time, if you look at like places in Charlotte where they used to be safe, and slowly we let things kind of get worse and worse and worse, and maybe they're not that bad right now. They're just kind of running in front of traffic, jumping on cars, stopping cars, and pretending to shoot each other, smoking weed. That's not that bad, but it could get to the point where, if you look at like Concord at the end of last year, where they had the Christmas tree lighting or something like that, it was mostly families, and it was a place that nothing ever bad happens. And there were some kids there, like a bit more than normal, decided to kind of meet there. Two of them got into an argument, and they shot each other, and some families were in the crossfire. And it hasn't happened in Birkdale yet, but it could get there. And I just think if things don't change by the end of the year, I don't think it's going to be what it was anymore. Because we started going there just because of the appeal of like people with their families, with their babies and strollers and little foo-foo dogs and that sort of thing. Last weekend I thought, I'll give it another shot. I'm going to go back this Saturday. But those kids said they were going to be there this Saturday. If you look at like TikTok and Instagram, they said they were coming back. And there's nothing we can do to stop them. So I hope things get better. I guess all we can do is see how things go.
Thank you, sir. Concludes our public comments. Let's see, we'll proceed to item number 7 for agenda changes, adoption of the agenda.
I make a motion to remove item 8A from the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries. And is there a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries. And now may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Item number 9, we did not have any public hearings this evening, so we'll go to item number 10A. Consider a decision on traffic calming on Central Avenue between Delwood and Holbrooks. Ms. Mastro Francesco.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Roberts. So last board meeting, we talked about possible traffic calming measures on Central Avenue. So I'll give you a quick recap, and then we can discuss if you have any other additional questions. So this is what a speed hump would look like on a cross-section that is ditch section only. We had proposed 3 speed humps on Central Avenue. They're roughly equally spaced. The other option we spoke about was called advisory shoulders, which was very new to the discussion, and it had been discussed with a bunch of the community. So what the advisory shoulders is a single lane around 10 feet wide, and then within the pavement, 2 4 to 5 foot wide paths, so acting like a sidewalk, we'll say. Now, you have to remember that this is one lane, 2 directions, so as a car approaches another car, you would veer off to the right, each of you, and pass each other as you're going by. This would make sure that we would have to make sure there's absolutely no on-street parking the whole length of the road for this type of measure. This is what it would look like in a cross-section. We'd have the dashed line. You would be driving down the center. On either side would be pedestrians or bicycles, motorized wheelchairs, things like that. We'd have the signs that say no parking on pavement. We would show arrows that it's a 2-way, 1-lane road. At the ends, you would start with 2 lanes, and then we'd neck down into that 1 lane. So does anyone have any additional questions since we discussed this?
Okay, so
this idea came about how? How, and I guess the reason why I'm asking this is because there is no other community in the town of Huntersville that has this type of traffic calming. Was this a collaborative effort with the community? How did this specific traffic calming mechanism come into play?
I'd definitely like to refer to someone else. So it came from the from my knowledge, came from the planning department. So if it's all right. And I think Bobby wanted to come up.
Hey, yeah, this idea came about as part of the Pottstown Community Plan. While we were in the middle of that, we had residents requesting better sidewalk facilities. And while we were doing that study that entailed a lot more than that, Laura received a traffic calming request, as well as a request for a crosswalk, for us to explore a crosswalk on Holbrooks, or across Holbrooks at the end of Central. And NCDOT said that they can't put one in because there's no pedestrian facilities along Central Avenue. So we had come up with this idea, or were aware of this type of facility, and thought it might be a lower cost, shorter term solution to the traffic calming needs, and an opportunity to create a pedestrian facility that may then allow us to create a crosswalk at the end of the street. So we presented that to the Pottstown community as part of those ongoing community meetings, and gathered feedback, and that's kind of where it began. So.
And so, in hearing that lower cost sidewalk mechanisms, the community, were they receptive of this? What was the dialogue?
We held a meeting and invited the community to come discuss it, and the people present were interested in exploring it, and we presented it as an opportunity to try it as a pilot study to see if it was effective in meeting their requests for traffic calming as well as pedestrian facilities. So that's how we had presented it, as a pilot study.
I guess my concern is that the street is already narrow. Basically, if you can go back to the slide where the actual picture of Central Avenue. So the street is already narrow, and so when you have ongoing traffic coming, it's already where you're having to get over. In this situation, looking at it, that basically the cars would still be going into the pedestrian walk to get through. Am I correct in saying that?
The cars are still allowed to use the full width of the pavement. If there are pedestrians present, they're supposed to yield until the pedestrian passes, and then they still have full use of the paved surface. So it's kind of demarcating the outside as an area where you can expect to see pedestrians. It's more intuitive than anything. It's how people tend to drive down narrow streets in general, down the center, and then when they encounter other cars, they tend to spread out and slow down. Mm-hmm. And this is designed to kind of formalize that intuitive use of narrow roads, and to communicate where you should expect to find pedestrians. And it also helps to kind of communicate to drivers that they should be expected to drive down the center and leave that space for pedestrians, as opposed to a road that that's not marked, may suggest that this is just for cars, and if two cars are driving, pedestrians should step off into the grass, into the ditch.
But they would do that anyway if oncoming traffic was coming regardless. They would have to still, if a pedestrian is walking,
and the cars are coming, there are two cars coming in opposite directions, even if they yield, they're still going to have to get over. So I guess I'm just trying to understand how this can reduce the speed limit within, but, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
So generally, the concept of narrowing the travel lane has a traffic calming effect. So on wider lanes, people tend to drive faster. On narrower lanes, people tend to drive slower because their viewpoint is narrowed. So striping that center line and telling people to drive down the center line has been found to have traffic calming effects.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yep. Mayor
This
Pro
isn't
Tem?
a question, more just like a statement. I mean, what I think we're hearing is that the community, one, needs people to slow down. And then also there's a desire for sidewalks or some sort of path, right, for safety. So my suggestion would be that we do both, that we do the advisory shoulder and the speed hump, because it seems to solve both of the problems. And it would also allow us to do the crossing, right? Potentially.
Potentially.
Okay.
I'd have to go back to DOT and ask at that point.
Right, okay.
Now, the speed humps would have to be cut short. We don't want the hump within the walking path because we want it to be accessible to all users, like a motorized wheelchair. That can't go over a speed hump. So it would be cut short. And I think we might have people trying to skirt around
That's what I
the
was going to
speed
ask.
hump, like
Yeah.
on half wheels. We just have to monitor and see. Like Heather said, it'd be a test pilot, try it out. If we don't like it, or if the residents don't feel like it is achieving what it's supposed to achieve, when we restudy it with our radar devices, if it's not achieving what we think or hoped it would, we can always then change it up. But if the board wants to do both, like on top of each other, then that's all I need you to direct us.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I have another question in response to that. Okay, so if, let's say we don't do both and we decide just to go with this mechanism, the proposed mechanism, what is the timeline to say, well, we'll test this out. If it doesn't work, we'll put in the traffic calming devices. What is the timeline for that?
We would like to study it for 3 to 6 months, unless something outrageous came up. We want a good amount of time for people to get comfortable with it. A lot of people, you could be out of town and then you come back and you're like, oh, this traffic pattern changed. We want them to see it, get comfortable with it, and then just start using it as their daily life.
And so that's 3 to 6 months to create this, and then you study it, you come back. Will we have to start the process over for the traffic, for the speed humps, or will we just continue on from what was founded initially?
So if the results come back and the speeds are within our policy threshold, then we would leave it unless the community thought unless there was some underlying issue. But we would not have to restart the whole thing because we have layouts of speed humps. But we will do however the board will direct us.
Commissioner Walsh?
I'm on Central several times a week. There are stop signs currently. There's a three-way stop at David Street and Central Avenue, which seems a little odd to me, but if we were to implement both the advisory shoulders and the speed humps, you'd still need a stop sign coming off of David Street onto Central, but it seems like, you'd be hitting a speed bump, maybe a stop sign. Like, would that stop sign or the stop sign on Central, not the one coming off of David, still be necessary?
We could study whether it is necessary, warranted or not. The layout that I had showed for the 3 speed humps took into account that there was a stop sign, so I kind of split it up from the bottom half and the top half. But if the all-way stop is not warranted, we would have to readjust the
speed hump, or possibly add another one. But I think we could readjust the spacings.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, Commissioner Smallwood.
Hi, whenever the meeting took place in Pottstown, were the citizens aware of the no parking if this was implemented on the pavement? Okay.
It was discussed. So we had one meeting was just with just two people from the community. And then that's when we discussed that we would have a bigger meeting with more people from the community. So we've had involvement with the community the whole time. And yes, it was discussed there was no parking at that time.
Was that well received?
I didn't hear any negativity towards it. I didn't get any negative comments afterwards.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we ready for a motion? Before we do the motion, I want to circle back to Mayor Pro Tem Hunt's recommendation to do both the advisory lanes and the speed hump. Is that included in your motion to do both?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Just want to make sure.
I guess I just want to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of the community and what the residents want.
Yep.
I know safety is a huge concern, and I also know that infringement on people's property is also a concern. So I just want to make sure that, we're making the best decision possible.
Yes, of course. Before we do that motion, I want to ask one question. Do you have, or is there any data on the effectiveness of advisory shoulders?
I don't know if I have it in this presentation. I had shown, here we go, a chart that explained more like the sweet spot that you would use these. And the number of vehicles, ours is down central, it's 300 cars a day, that average, roughly. Now, to use this facility, they recommend, the FHWA, even up to 3,000 cars. That's a big difference. So low speeds, low volumes, this would work according to the data.
Thank you. All right, are we ready for a motion now? Okay.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve the advisory shoulder traffic calming device on Central Avenue, along with 3 speed humps on Central Avenue between Delwood Drive and Holbrook's Road, in addition to considering the removal of the 3-way stop signs. Am I saying that correct? I'm sorry.
The always
The
stop.
2 stop signs on Central Avenue based upon further study.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And item 10B, consider a decision on need for an additional traffic calming measures on Delwood Drive. Ms. Mastro Francesco.
Yes. So we had a request for traffic calming on Delwood. And in May of last year, we had a public hearing, and what was approved was to put 2 speed humps on Delwood between Central and where Vermilion starts. So those were installed in July of 2025, and we waited 6-7 months before we went out to restudy this. The community had said they didn't think that they were working well. So we went back and studied it, and these are the results. To the left was the highest speed at 33 miles per hour. That is over the threshold that we have for our traffic calming. And then you see the next speed hump. The next 2 speeds were within our traffic calming policies threshold. So to try to mitigate this or decrease the speed at 33 miles an hour, we're asking if the board thinks we could go back and add something else. So for example, during the public hearing, we also talked about mini circles. And one of the ideas was to put a mini circle at this location because it's an intersection. To do that, I want to reiterate that we'd have to get some property from at least three parcels. There's a fire hydrant that we'd have to relocate. That's not a huge deal, but I'm just pointing out everything. And there's a utility pole. Now, in this view, the utility pole doesn't look like anything, but in elevation, you see this utility pole, it has a lot on it. So it would take some time to move this utility pole with all the lines going back onto a new one. So another suggestion would be, in red, you see the current speed humps, spaced at around 500, to add a third speed hump just to the east or west of Central Avenue. And that would be about 100 feet off the intersection because you don't want to make a turn left or right and then immediately go over a speed hump. So we need some distance away. So for the top picture, this would capture all the drivers coming eastbound from Church or Main Street, let's say, and anyone who turned eastbound on Central. The bottom one, if the board thinks that most of the drivers are coming eastbound, then on the west side of Central would be another location that we could put. So those are the two ideas that we were thinking of to help change that higher number of 33 miles per hour. So if the board would select one, then we could also go back in around 6 months and we test it out again between those two. Is there any questions, additional questions about this one?
Commissioner Walsh.
Despite my love of traffic circles and roundabouts, I think given the cost, complexity, and time to do that, we'd be potentially looking at, a year or more. I'm sure if Mr. Roberts said to Kevin, run out there tomorrow and throw in a speed hump, we'd probably get it done pretty quickly. So I think at this time, again, speed hump would be the preferred traffic calming device.
Okay. Would you go the east side of Central, west side of Central?
Probably east side.
I agree with east side.
So I need the board to make a motion, please.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'm just taking a little poll before they. All right, do we have a motion to install a speed hump on the east side of this proposed situation with on Delwood?
Yep. I'll make a motion to add one additional speed hump on Delwood Drive to the west of the two existing speed humps and east of Central Avenue.
Is there a second?
Sorry, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Francesco.
Thank you.
Master Francesco. All right, we're on to item number 11, closing comments. Commissioner Walsh. Commissioner Rivers.
Yes, I do. So in lieu of Black History Month, today we lost one of our very own civil rights leaders, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., who was born October 8th, 1941, and he passed today, February 17th, 2026. He was an American civil rights activist, Baptist minister, and politician. He was a candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination in 1984 and 1988 and served as a shadow U.S. Senator for the District of Columbia from 1991 to 1997. He founded the merged Rainbow Push from organizations he had established earlier. But I want to leave you all with something. And Commissioner Quarles, I want to tell you that although it gets heavy sometimes with your integrity being questioned, don't ever doubt who you are and whose you are. I am somebody. I am somebody. I am a child of God, and I may not be educated, but I am somebody. I may not have any money, but I am somebody. I may not eat steak every day, but I am somebody. I may not look the way you look, but I am somebody. Let us all remember when we look at one another, we are all somebody. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivers. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt.
Just wanted to share a message on behalf of the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Just want to remind residents that they can nominate a treasure tree by going to the town's website. If there's a tree that you think has specific significance, you are welcome to go on the site and learn some more about that, and you can nominate a treasure tree. And then also, the North Mac Recycling Center is also now accepting solid waste food scraps, and so you can compost food at the recycling center.
Commissioner Quarles.
Well, my closing comments were going to be about the FOIA request, but the lady came just to get some, I guess, coverage for her social media post. But Mr. Riley, I want to thank you for verifying that there's nothing there as it relates to the FOIA. For those who want to do a FOIA request, please do a FOIA request to see if there's anything there. Sadly, that we have to deal with disgruntled former commissioners. Again, I would never let my integrity be insulted. Thank you so much, Commissioner Rivers. So again, my closing comments was, again, there's no there. And it's really sad that when someone wants to make you a target, they do whatever they can do to cause harm to another individual. Thank you again, Commissioner Rivers. Thank you, Anthony.
Commissioner Smallwood.
Yes, I just want to take a moment and thank our Huntersville Police Department and officers for all that they have done and continue to do for the citizens of Huntersville, and to thank Chief Bond for coming to speak this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm going last, and I just want to remind everybody that early voting is currently taking place. You can vote at any of the early voting locations in the county during early voting, and so there are a number of offices that are decided in the primary, and so make sure that you've done your research to make a plan to vote early. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, thank you. We are adjourned.